Hi everyone. Welcome to today's Health Hour health coaching session with Beck. My name is Ange Headlam. I'm the Community Experience Coordinator here at Diabetes Australia. Great to see you here today, and I can see we've got a few new faces in, which is fantastic. For those of you who don't know Beck and might be joining us for the first time, she is our resident accredited practicing dietitian and health coach with over 20 years. I think I might have to update that because it's probably more like 21 or 22 years experience now working with people living with
Yes, I've
diabetes.
aged.
Yeah, you'll have. For our regulars, great to see you and welcome back. For those of you who haven't done so, you are welcome to turn on your camera if you would like. We love to see you and interact, but this is not compulsory. You also have the option when the webinar is going to put any questions in the Q&A or chat functions, whichever you have access to. I'll keep an eye on both, and please use whichever is easiest for you or available. Because we haven't got a big group today, or as big as we have had before, please feel free to take yourself off mute if Beck has asked a question, or raise your hand using the raise hand function, and Beck will come to you. I'll be sharing the slides today, so Beck has some more time to see who's put hands up and asked questions as well. Just as a disclaimer, whilst Beck is an accredited practicing dietitian and health coach, she is not a medical expert or GP. We suggest you speak with your GP in relation to medical questions. Beck is unable to offer personal medical advice or consultations. If it is a question that could be answered by a diabetes educator or one of our other health professionals within Diabetes Australia, please post in Diabetes Connect and we can get an answer for you and come back to you. Finally, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available in Diabetes Connect in the coming week. And that is all from me. I will just flick to our acknowledgement of country, and Diabetes Australia acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners and custodians of this country. We pay the utmost respect to them, to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Diabetes Australia is committed to improving health outcomes for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people affected by diabetes and those at risk. And with that, I will flick to Beck's first slide and hand over. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Wing Lady. Hello, everyone. It's great that we've got a small group because, please take yourself off mute whenever you would like to ask a question. So, look, today is about understanding addictions, habits, and coping behaviours. And while smoking and alcohol are important topics, we know that addiction doesn't just relate to just those behaviours. So I'm going to open it up to other habits that many of us will relate to. Because many of the same brain pathways and behavioural patterns relate to food, relate to emotional eating, relate to sugar cravings. And so today's not about blame or judgment. It's about understanding why habits form, okay, because we're human beings. No such thing as a perfect human being. So it's really understanding human behaviour, why change is actually difficult, and then what strategies we can come up with to manage or overcome. So, some people find they have this for their whole life. So it's just about management. Some people find they can fix the problem. So everyone is really different. And so I don't want to bog you down in all the negative consequences, but I've just put this slide up here to show, why smoking matters. If you're a smoker, or maybe you have a loved one that is a smoker, and then you'd like to help them to quit, it really first comes from within them. So it is hard to help someone convince themselves they have to quit. But you can see that these are the negative consequences. And when you look at diabetes in particular, it can increase insulin resistance. We know there's a definite link between diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, damaging of blood vessels, slowing of wounds, wound healing. That's an important one. And kidney and eye disease risk. So it really puts pressure on the body. So I'm not going to go into any more of that, because what we're going to focus on, like I said, is to really learn about addiction and habits. How do they present themselves? What do you relate to? And how we can overcome them. So next slide, Wing Lady. And this one relates to alcohol. So we know, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced when having even just a glass or two, that it can raise or lower blood glucose levels unpredictably. We've talked about a lot of that when we've talked about travel and what to be mindful of when we're looking at hypos, and one of them can be alcohol. Overnight hypos, as I just mentioned, hypos, affecting sleep, appetite, and motivation. It tends to increase the appetite when we drink. And it can lead to poorer food choices. We know if we've had a few drinks, the decision-making kind of goes out the window. But it doesn't just affect the organ, the liver, it affects our routines, our energy, our sleep, and our decision-making as well. But not only that, a hangover can also relate to food. I've coached many patients over the years who have food hangovers. They wake up the next day feeling rotten from a binge, okay? And it can affect the routine. It can affect the energy or sleep. So don't just feel that we're going to be talking about these two specific behaviours. Next slide. I'm going to stop in a minute and I'd like to have a bit of a discussion. Sorry, I don't know what I've done with these slides. That's it. So addiction exists on a spectrum, okay? And not everyone has a clinical addiction. We don't all need to go to rehab, okay? So we're just talking about everyday habits, okay? Sometimes you might think, oh, you know, I think I need rehab, especially when these habits, they have a powerful pull. But many of us experience habit loops. So a habit loop is where there's a cue, which is a trigger, and that might be if you see high blood glucose levels. It might be when you go to the doctor. It might be late at night when everyone's in bed and you put the telly on. It might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, that 3 o'clock-itis. The craving comes, that's the desire. Okay, you might get a sugar craving. The response is you go and eat whatever because you've probably told yourself you shouldn't, which makes us do it. And then you get that reward, that satisfaction. And that reward can be reinforcing. So think about if you smelled the bakery or smelt some cookies and you go and eat it, and then you want to go back for more. It has a very addictive, it can be very addictive. So we can experience emotional eating, sugar cravings, reliance on caffeine, maybe snacking at night. And those of you who have attended my webinars before, the term I use for overnight snacking, or over snacking, sorry, overnight snacking, snacking overnight is the werewolf syndrome, where the sun goes down, the moon comes up and the fangs come out. Stress eating and difficulty stopping certain behaviours. Who can relate to some of these? People can relate to some of these? Yep, yep. And they can come at different points in time. Maybe there's been some personal trauma. Maybe the health isn't going as so good. Maybe there's financial troubles. Maybe you've got sleep issues, which can then affect what we eat. So they can come at different times. Next slide, wing lady. So let's learn a little bit about dopamine. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and it's involved in helping us feel pleasure. Okay, and so the research says that the brain releases dopamine in anticipation of a reward. Okay, so think about, like I said, the baked cookies. You're thinking about those baked cookies, that can increase the dopamine release. I've been reading a bit of research about online shopping and the anticipation of waiting for that purchase, or the anticipation of waiting. Yeah, I know, me too. I just got another order today. I was like, but it's 40% off. And then I buy twice as many things. So yeah, so dopamine's released in the anticipation of the reward. Okay. And like I said before, it's also involved in reinforcement. So that's why you go back for more. So you buy the pair of shoes and then it pops up and goes, oh, have you considered this? And you go, oh, okay. Or if you're eating the cookies and they taste good, then you want to go back and have more. And so, like I said, it's not just alcohol and smoking. It can be highly processed foods, and it creates temporary pleasure. We're not stupid. That's why we go for it. It tastes good. You may feel good from clicking that button and buying something. Cigarettes, you know, nicotine makes people feel good. It helps relieve stress. Alcohol's the same. It may be an emotional escape when you engage in emotional eating. It might provide comfort. It might be a ritual routine. Maybe you're into a habit where it happens at certain times of the day. And so often we're not addicted to the substance alone. It's attached to a feeling or a belief or a routine. So whenever we feel something, we go for something. So there's that paired association. If we're feeling down, we go for this. If we're feeling excited, we go for this. So I'm going to stop there for the moment because I've just given you a little bit of an idea about how dopamine works, and I'm going to give you some strategies, but I'd love to hear from you. And like I said, there's no judgment. This is just understanding how the brain works and what we can do about it, and if there's any lived examples. Does anyone want to say what they're finding difficult, or maybe you've got a strategy you want to share or a solution that you've come up with? Just going to sip my tea.
Can I
Yes.
open? Yeah. So my name is Ajay. I had pretty much an addiction to alcohol, but I've joined AA now, and it's been up and down. But I've been talking to my endocrinologist and my diabetes counselor as well. So it's going good, but the appetite is not coming back.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so first of all, AJ, thank you for sharing your experience, and well done to join AA. There's all sorts of groups where it's Overeaters Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or for smoking. So well done. A support group is a great way for you to understand you're not alone. And these behaviors are very normal. That's just what we do as human beings. So tell me a little bit about, you said suppress the appetite. So does that have an impact? Like you don't eat much during the day, then you might find your blood sugars go low, or then you overeat. Is that sort of a pattern that's happening? How's it happening for you?
In a way, it's just that I just don't feel like eating. And I mean, but I do get cravings in the night, just thinking about, McDonald's or, Hungry Jacks or that sort of thing. And I just feel so hungry.
Yes.
And hypos have been going there, but then I have a lot of fruit in the house, grapes or watermelon, and just eat that. I've got a lot of jelly bellies, which I eat, but that doesn't really fill my tummy. It's only for that time where I just to stop my pump from. I'm on a Medtronic pump, right?
Yes, got it.
And just to stop it from beeping, I just eat that.
So beeping in terms of it's going low?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of points there, and I think, I just love your honesty. In one of the strategies I talk about, because you have raised an important point, because that dopamine's released in that anticipation. You think about Hungry Jacks and you start to think about what it tastes like, the smell, and that can release dopamine. Okay, because that anticipation of reward. And that's what you got from alcohol, right? We get it from alcohol. I know I get a good buzz from a glass of champagne, right? But then, if we overdo it, right, and you're used to that feeling from alcohol and you've stopped that, then you're going for something else, which is processed food, which you get the same feeling. So that's a really, really hard thing to deal with. So I'll come back to these strategies, but because I've got a couple of I think it's 5-step strategies. But one thing to do is to, and it takes a while for habits to change, but get into a routine and to eat some foods that cut those cravings. So often people will say with alcohol, if they have a good meal, it stops the cravings. Okay, stops the alcohol cravings. So something with plenty of protein and fiber, because the sugar, I mean, you definitely need the jelly babies if you're having a hypo under 4. Fruit is a great snack, but sometimes it's not enough alone when you're really craving, you're craving pizza and you go for an apple. I mean, it's not very motivating, is it? You're not making it very attractive for yourself. Okay, so there's a couple of things I'd like to go through, if that's all right, if you could hold off. Definitely a pattern, a routine, getting into a routine, and you can have days where it doesn't work, but that's just part of it. Routine and being structured with meals with protein and fiber that actually cuts those cravings. But then with you, it have to be built in other rewards that aren't that don't lead to negative health outcomes. So things that make you feel good. So the question I always ask people is, what else can you do to give you that feeling of reward or comfort without the extra calories or without the alcohol? So it's a, non-food related behaviors, activities, music, things like that. So your strategy will be quite multifactorial, and we'll come back to that.
And just sorry, I didn't want to hijack it, but my type 1 came in because I had a acute pancreatitis, and that was about 5 years ago, and that was
okay.
Probably, yeah, my pancreas just died. So
Yep.
so it's not genetic, it's not
Yes.
it's not from
Yep.
so I'm just one of those weird people on a type 1.
Unique, AJ.
Yep. Yeah.
Unique.
That's what my endocrinologist tells me.
Unique. And, you might find that your blood sugars are unpredictable because of the pancreatitis. And, you can't always follow a foolproof plan and get the same outcome. And that can be frustrating with diabetes. And this is what we're also going to talk about, because with diabetes burnout, for example, that can then start triggering these sorts of behaviors as well. If you're feeling down, of course, you're going to go for something that makes you feel good. So let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Wing Lady. So I've just said, can any of you relate to any of these? And some of us have said yes. And you can see emotional eating, sugar cravings, because like you're saying, AJ, eating the fruit or the jelly babies, it just doesn't cut it, and it won't. Eating when stressed or tired, reward food, difficult stopping at one treat. We all know there's something that we can't stop at. And so out of sight, out of mind is my first strategy, is don't keep it in the house. Constant thoughts about food. Or it could be constant thoughts about alcohol, constant thoughts about smoking, constant thoughts about vaping, because as soon as you say don't think about it, what do we think about? So you can't get rid of a thought. Just if I say stop thinking about chocolate, I'd like you all to stop thinking about Belgian chocolate. Stop thinking about chocolate. What you can do to take your mind off is think about a vanilla gelato. Has everyone got a vanilla gelato in their head? Vanilla gelato? Vanilla gelato? Yes. Did the Belgian chocolate go away? Or maybe it's all there as well and you're creating all this in your head. But it's replacing it. So you can't get rid of a negative thought. You've got to replace it. It's the same with cravings. And we often crave these things when sleep is poor, stress is high, fluctuations in blood sugars. Because if you're feeling like crap from high blood sugars or low blood sugars, we're going to our behaviors may lean towards food to make us feel better, or it could be alcohol or cigarettes. And when dieting becomes restrictive, has anyone ever tried to really restrict their diet and it just became a nightmare because all you did was focus on the food you can't have? Can anyone relate to this? That's why diets don't work long term. Yep, and just got a hand up. Diets do not work long term. Diets don't work long term, they work short term. And the minute someone cuts a food out, unless you've got an allergy or intolerance, I have alarm bells going off in my head. Because as soon as something's taken away, we want a reward. Next slide. So let's talk a bit about the restriction rebound cycle. So I just tapped on that before. So restrictive dieting can increase cravings, especially if we think of good and bad foods. That just backfires. So if you think a food is bad and the minute you just want to give up, what are we going to go for? And often shame fuels the cycle. So this is how the cycle happens. And I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. So you restrict something. You might say, I've got to cut this out because my sugars aren't right. Or I've got to cut that alcohol out because I promised AA I was going to. Or you might restrict your carbohydrates, and then you start craving it because all you do is think about it. And over time, because we're all human and no one's perfect, you're going to break and you'll overeat it or overdrink it or oversmoke it. Then how do you feel? Do you feel good about yourself after that? No, you feel pretty bad, especially if it's the food hangover I was talking about before. And I've coached many people over the years who have to remind themselves of how they feel the next day, not just from an alcohol hangover, but how you feel when you're eating late at night. So the guilt starts, and when you feel guilty, you restart the restriction. So it's almost like you're punishing yourself, this cycle. And so the brain, as I said before, responds to deprivation by increasing focus on food and rewards. The worst thing you can do is deprive yourself, because the brain's very clever. It's going to go back. Who can relate to this? Any examples or any comments about this restriction rebound cycle? Because it's very, very common. I think we've all been there.
Feel free to just bring yourselves off mute if you would like. And see Deb there.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether this fits into your question or not, but I know the last 6 to 8 weeks, having been in burnout, and part of the process has been that I have had to be intentional about keeping my blood glucose levels high. I've increased my carbohydrate to be able to do that, and it goes contrary to everything that I would normally do. And now I'm sort of, the endo has said I can, go back to normal.
Okay.
I'm finding it difficult because I feel, I know I have overeaten way more carbs than in the last 6 to 8 weeks than I would have in the last however many years.
Years, exactly, because you're quite reduced carb. That's right.
Yeah, and so now I'm finding it difficult to sort of get my head. I guess it's more a head thing than it is putting in practice, because I know what to do. But it's I'm finding it very difficult.
It's thanks for sharing, Deb. And Deb, gosh, that's been that 6 to 8 weeks. I feel like I'm always asking you. It's just dragged on. It really. It really, and it does relate to this, Deb, because you're into a habit of eating more carbohydrate now, which is nice. It's not like that's great. Oh, I get to have a bit of rice. I mean, Deb is one of the most carb sensitive individuals, honestly, and so it's really hard for you to restrict that. But then when you put more carbs in your diet, it would have been very nice.
Yeah.
In a way. So to dial it back, remember we talked about, and it will probably come up in the strategies, so rather than that all or nothing black and white thinking to think I've got to go back to the old Deb, it might be transitional, and it might be just small steps of 10% at a time. Remember we talked about that just noticeable difference. It's about a 10% change where you notice the difference, not 2%, not enough, not 50%, it's too much. So maybe adjusting back to your lower carbohydrate regime in stages. Perhaps that could be a way. So it means that your sugars are still running a bit higher, but you're pacing yourself rather than racing. Because if you go back to that old Deb, that's like restrictive dieting, because you've gone from higher back to very low.
Yep.
If that makes sense. And so I'd be worried about rebound, because it's just too much, and I think it will freak your body out a bit too much because you've been so used to it.
Yep.
So just bit at a time. 10%
changes. I've noticed it just in the last 2 days. My time in range has been obviously the best it's been for the last 6-8 weeks. But I don't feel well, in the sense that, I think my body's just not used to it. It's not used to being normal. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you. Yeah. To adjust to it, absolutely. So how do you manage that in terms of self-nurturing, like to make yourself feel good when you're still feeling yuck? Have you put in strategies or activities to help you get through this? Because it's not going to be an overnight change, as we know, unfortunately.
I think I'm trying to break it down to a meal at a time. A choice.
That's the 10%
a choice
change.
At a time. Because I was finding if I had a craving for a particular high carb something or other, my head would say, no, have a piece of fruit instead. So I'd have the piece of fruit, but then I'd go, yeah, but that didn't satisfy the craving. And so I'd have the fruit as well as the high carb something or other.
Yep.
And then it felt, twice as bad because I had both.
So then you got the guilt. Can you see this? This is the restriction rebound cycle. And just like AJ said, he said before, I have fruit, but then it didn't cut it. So then I went for glucose lollies, even when you're not hypoing. So, and then you feel guilty. But you know what? Isn't it interesting? This is why I put this up. This is what the science said. So science says, so, or Deb's an ex-health professional, so you get it. But for those who have never seen this before, why I try to present this in the science to say it's not you personally who has failed. This is about human behavior. This is about the brain, neurotransmitters. So you are responding, your body's responding normally. Okay, so you're responding normally. So the trick is to look at a change that will stick. And so I love the idea of 1 meal at a time. So it's one thing at a time, one step at a time, add up over time. So that's related to that 10% change. That's the only way to do it. And it might mean that it takes you 4 weeks to get there, but you'll stick with it. And it's just like weight loss rather than, you know, restrictive. Losing weight more sustainably. Next slide, wing lady. So stress and coping. Stress? Who's stressed? Does anyone stress? Sometimes I feel if it doesn't rain, it pours. But you know what? Sometimes life gives you lemons and, well, you could make limoncello, but if we're talking about alcohol addiction, maybe we could do something else. A low carb lemon curd. Oh dear. Anyway, so coping. I bet you Deb's got a recipe for that too. You do. I have one actually, and I'm going to try it again for my new next recipe book. So many habits are coping tools. So we often use food. We've talked about that. Alcohol, and we can do it for commiserations and celebrations. We celebrate with food, we commiserate with food, same with alcohol. Scrolling, this can also become addictive. And I've said it before, I had to really cut down on this because by the time I put my daughter into bed, I had mum time and it was, let's say, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then I'd start just having a little look at my phone and then you go down a rabbit hole and it just impacts the sleep. So I had to really, rather than say cut it out, I give myself 15 minutes just to have a look, catch up on any friend messages. Otherwise, you know, I'll go back to doing too much of it. TV binging, shopping, nothing wrong with shopping. It's an investment. I shouldn't say that. Someone might have a proper addiction. So shopping in moderation. There we go. And we know that these are the sort of feelings, and Deb tapped into this as well. So we've got burnout, emotional overwhelm, anxiety, fatigue, loneliness, and stress. Because when we're feeling down, we'll go for these rewards that make us feel good in the short term. So especially with diabetes, and this is where burnout comes into play, because we've got that constant decision fatigue. Diabetes does not switch off 24/7 a day. The pressure to be good, and no disrespect to health professionals, but I've often seen I've had to retrain patients in the past to come in and see me and say, rather than, oh, what have you done well? My question was always, what hasn't been working? What has worked? Otherwise, if you feel you have to go and see a health professional to say everything's worked, you will cancel appointments, or you could make things up because you feel like you have to be perfect all the time. So that pressure to be good, and that's very old school diabetes, really needs to be knocked on its head, because no one is perfect and life gets in the way every day. So it's not about being good. It's about engaging in more positive, proactive behaviors. So it's never a personal thing. There's never a person with diabetes I've seen who has failed. It's a person living with diabetes whose strategies have not worked for them. And the burnout around numbers and routines. Deb can relate to this. You know, always the numbers, time in range, routine, and you just think, I just want a holiday from this. And if we have that all or nothing thinking, sometimes we can go from being routine oriented to completely giving it up. So that shades of grey, if you have fallen off the horse, is just, as we said before, 1 meal at a time or 10% change to get back in that balance. Can anyone else relate to this? Anyone want to add some points? Maybe a strategy that's worked for you, or maybe you're also finding it difficult, a particular behaviour. I'm just going to scroll through and see people's names here, but no pressure as well, if you'd like to just sit and listen. Just going through and having a look.
I think is it Diane?
Yes.
Yeah, hi Diane.
Hi there.
With the lovely curly hair. Lovely hair.
frizzy. It's all this damp weather.
I don't see, great to see curls.
Yes, just the numbers. I'm feeling overwhelmed with numbers at the moment, but it's funny. It's not just to do with my Medtronics and my pump and all those measures. It's numbers in general, whether it's clicking through my statements and seeing when bills are due. And I just, got to write everything in a paper calendar. And then I lost the old calendar and I had to start again. So it's just things we've flowed over to anything numerical is becoming hard work, but I'm working on it. I'm not giving up.
Oh, I love that. So what strategies you're putting in place to not give up? So I love that you put things in a calendar. I do too. So that must have been horrible. Like lost your head if you lost your calendar. Like if I lose my calendar, yeah. So how are you not giving up? So what steps have you put in place just to, because numbers can't go away, unfortunately. I hear you. I'm sick of looking at bills and numbers, and then I don't have diabetes, so you've got that as well. So how are you coping with all that?
Well, the calendar thing, I just thought, look, this has happened ages ago, and I coped. And I remembered that I had a spare one that was given to me at Christmas, so I found that and just started again. And have to ring appointments and check and get them copied up to date and just think it's okay. Right. It's not rocket science. I can pick up where I can and just hang on to this one.
Yep.
That's
good. I'm writing down what you've done. You've actually come up with 2 strategies. So thinking how to plan and planning how to think. Now, Deb knows this one. I've said this quite a few times. So thinking how to plan. So, and this will relate to you, AJ, as well, when we talked about, remember I said try to get into a routine when things feel a bit messy. It's just getting back into that habit, because Diane was out of the habit because you lost your calendar. So it would be writing things down and getting into a routine, whether it's planning meals or appointments, everything. And the second thing Diane said was a cognitive strategy. It's planning how to think. You said it's not rocket science. I can do this. Now, that's a fantastic cognitive or thinking strategy to tell yourself, Diane, when you think, sometimes I know when I'm overwhelmed and you think it's all too hard and you look at it and go, it's just numbers I have to put in a calendar. But at the time when you're burnt out, putting numbers in a calendar or coming up with another recipe, a dinner idea, you just can't do. You just think, my brain is ready to explode. So I love what you're saying is it's not rocket science and I can do this, and it might be just one step at a time. So thinking and planning, usually with every strategy, we need a thinking strategy and also a plan. Otherwise it becomes messy.
Sure does.
Love it, Diane. Thank you. It's a really good example. Deb.
Just for Diane, I can totally relate to the calendar issue. I actually lost my phone and it just freaked me out. Fortunately, there was a kind young man who actually found it and gave it and got it back to me. Anyway, that's another story. But since then, and I keep my calendar, I do have a physical calendar that I write into sometimes, but I keep my calendar mostly on my phone, which is great, except when you lose your phone. So now, since then, I've had my husband take a photo of my calendar, so as a backup. So just in case it happens again, there's that backup. And if you're using a physical calendar, just take a photo of each of the month, and you can always delete the photo when it's obsolete.
When it's past.
Love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Backup plan. Love it. Because what we're really anticipating there, it's a great strategy rather than think, oh, it's all done, the plan's in place. And then when something doesn't work, you feel like the mat's been just pulled out under you. You've got a contingency or plan, a backup plan, because life is always going to get in the way. And so whenever I set a goal with someone, it's okay, these are some strategies. What if it doesn't work? What other strategy do you need to put in place? That's fantastic. I love it. Because you can't always rely on technology, can you? Especially with type 1 diabetes, it's quite frightening, actually, when you think of when things don't work. Next slide. I think we're going to get into some strategies in a minute. Yes, here are some strategies. And some of you have already mentioned these. So first of all is awareness before action. We've got to be aware what triggers the behavior. Okay, is it the craving? Is it when you're starting to think about something? Is it when you drive past a liquor store? When does it happen? And what feeling am I trying to change? Because you can't get rid of the feeling. You've got to embrace that feeling and maybe use another behavior to relieve that feeling rather than the addictive substance. So you might be feeling stressed, bored, lonely, fatigue, or maybe it's habitual times of the day. So before we really come up with a strategy, it's really answering those questions, because then you can pinpoint when it's happening, why it's happening, how is it happening, and then you can come up with an authentic strategy rather than just going with what your neighbour said. It's not a one size fits all. All of our strategies are different. Next slide. So that's the first one. Be aware of it. I've mentioned this before, the all or nothing mindset, black and white thinking. I failed. What's the point? I will never get it right. So if we think like that, we've got Buckleys of ever moving forward. So what we can do is look at, what can I learn from this pattern? Why did I just go to the bottle-o and buy something? Why did I just put packets of sweets in the trolley and to convince myself they're for the guests, and the guests didn't arrive and I ate all of them? So this pattern, justifications and excuses. So often our thoughts don't sound negative. They can be things like, oh, I deserve this. I've had a good few days, or I'll buy these for the guests, things like that. So the helpful message to take away here, to really break that all or nothing thinking, is progress is more sustainable than perfection. We are not going to be perfect. What am I doing? And what I am doing is enough. And that's a really important message that I give myself, because I tend to be all or nothing and can be a bit perfectionistic with myself and raise the bar too high. So what I've said to myself recently is, what I'm doing is enough. Given this point in time, if there's a stressful situation, just do this, it's enough. Then when you're feeling a bit better, things get better, then do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So I'm trying to take on my advice. AJ.
It's a funny thing that I never ate sugars before. Right? I was completely against sugar since my childhood. And since I've got type 1, I'm craving sugars. So I'm not sure. I mean, is it just because of the diabetes, or is it just,
I'd be interested to know your blood sugars, because fluctuations in blood sugars can cause the craving. So if you're running too high or running too low. So if there's the more imbalanced the sugars, the more likely you're to crave things. That can be one reason. Yeah. So like I said, if your sugars are quite balanced and you still got a craving, then I'd go, okay, so let's look at your meal and what we can do to change that to make you more satisfied. Yeah. So like I said, yeah. So check your sugars out. And also, like I said before, protein and fiber contribute to that satiety and that fullness and that feeling satisfied, and that can help cut the cravings of alcohol.
It's more that I like sugars more than what I was before, like 5 years ago. And that's a weird sensation for me. You're not used to it. So
look, I just think if the blood sugars are, I mean, other people can comment because you're all living with diabetes, but for me, the sugar cravings, the first thing I think about is, are the blood sugars within range? If there's fluctuations, you could be craving.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No, good point. Next one. And they're questions you can ask your endocrinologist. So don't forget, when you go and see your specialist, write down your questions, because they might have some other medical reasons or explanations to, let's say, sugar cravings. Building replacement strategies. So the brain still needs comfort, reward, regulation, and routine. The brain wants it, but we don't want to use harmful substances. So healthier replacements, and these are just some ideas I've plucked out of the air, and everyone has different strategies. It could be gentle exercise, music and meditation. It can be just time in the outdoors. That's something that really boosts my mood, is just getting out in the outdoors. Love it. Hobbies could be calling a friend or having time with a friend. Structured meals. It could be sleep routine, working on that sleep hygiene. And don't forget our pets. I've got a lovely, beautiful cat, and she always puts me in a good mood. And Angie's nodding her head. She's a crazy cat lady as well. So pet therapy, I know if I pat my cat and have time with her, instant mood lifter. Instant mood lifter. They just look up, especially dogs, they tend to look up at you and make you feel good as well. But these are healthier replacements. But like I said, we need a plan. So trying to structure these in rather than just go randomly, I'll just go and meditate, trying to put them in the routine, especially at that time where you may get a craving or there may be a trigger. It's trying to build these into your routine as well. Very, very important. Next slide, step 4. Making the environment easier. So as I said, out of sight, out of mind. So temptation is less visible. So don't stock wine in the fridge, or don't put chocolate in the cupboard or sweets in the cupboard. I've had people with type 1 diabetes in particular, where I had one lady who just loved jelly babies and jelly beans. So she changed her hypo treatment to horrible glucose tabs because she'd never binge on those. Because she said, if I've got the jelly babies and jelly beans in the cupboard, I'll just go and eat them. Or I'll say, I'll just have 2 and then I'll eat more. So out of sight, out of mind, where healthy options are accessible. If we're trying to remove the culprit, you know, whether it's whatever it is, processed foods or alcohol, put some healthy options in place so you're replacing it. As I said, planning a routine. When stress is lower, because if you find it's always happening, maybe we need to work on the stress itself, and that may be a visit to the GP. Does there need to be a consultation with a psychologist to look at stress management? Does there need to be an exercise plan put in place? Does there need to be an appointment with the accountant? Maybe it's the financial situation that's causing the stress. So until we reduce the stress, you're not going to change the behaviours. I had a lady once, a beautiful lady, she was a school principal, very close to retirement, and it was a very, very stressful job, and her type 2 diabetes was just out the window. She was missing meals, so she'd come home and overeat, and it was just all out of whack. And the problem was, when I asked her what was causing this, it was her stress on finances. She was stressed about, could she afford to retire? And she was getting stressed about, maybe I'm just going to have to keep working till I'm 70. And I said, well, how would you know? And she said, well, I don't know, I'm just assuming. So she left my consultation with a referral to her financial advisor. And when she met her financial advisor, they worked out she could retire at a good time, and that put her mind at ease, and that stopped all the stress eating and got her more into a routine rather than the catastrophization and stressing. So don't feel like, if you find you're coming up with a lot of strategies and the stress is not going away, maybe you need to really get to the core issue. What is the stress? So that could be, like I said, a GP visit to discuss how you can manage that, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you can keep coming up with strategies and feel burnt out because it's not going away. Balanced meals, I've said that before. Step 5. So regulation, not restriction. So I've talked about the regular meals, and you might be having carbs in there, but not no carbs. So coming up with a balance. Sleep is really important, because we know if sleep's out of whack, it impacts our cravings, it interferes with our hormones, our appetite hormones, hydration, stress, I've said, and also flexible thinking. So as I said before, it's not about being perfect, it's looking at what's manageable at this point in time, and that can help regulate all of these: hunger, energy, cravings, blood glucose levels, and mood. So not restriction. Next slide. So here are some take-home points, and then I'm going to stop, and then we're going to have a bit more of a discussion, if that's what you'd like to do. But I really wanted to just spend today giving you a bit more education, and it may not be education, maybe you already know this, but it's a reminder that healthy habits are easier when the supported. And most of us don't need more guilt. I don't think any of us need more guilt. We need better tools, support, and understanding. So for you, you might be thinking, is it a support thing I'm going to take away from today? Maybe I need more support. I'm doing this alone. Maybe I need more understanding. Maybe I need to go back to the doctor and get a referral to see someone to work it out. Maybe I need to read, and this is actually going to be on the forum, maybe I need to go back over this presentation and look at some of the tools that may work for me and write them down in a plan. So comments or questions about what we've talked about? And that's the QR code that you can scan to tell us what you think, good or bad. We're tough, aren't we, Ange?
We
Got a
are.
tough exterior. We are.
It should be.
But you
sent
know
out
what?
too.
Actually, yeah. And the other thing is for newcomers, you know, with the survey, it's also putting in ideas. Like I'm always asking Ange, oh, what other ideas could we have for the webinar? So please spend the time sending us some ideas via the survey of what topics you'd like to know more about. Maybe you want to go in more depth about the brain, about brain psychology. Maybe you want to know more about anything to do with type 1 diabetes or stress management, whatever the case may be. But the more ideas you give us, the more we can tailor it. The comments. Just having a look at some notes here to see if I have not forgotten anything. I think I've covered everything. So oh yes, Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi. I've been on psychiatric medication for 45 years, and the end effect of it is that it gives you severe metabolic syndrome, which has now led to pre-cirrhosis of the liver. So the doctor said the only thing I can do is lose weight. But since being put on the drugs, I've gone from 7 stone to obese. And you just have to look at food on these drugs and you put on weight. It's an uphill battle. And if people see psychiatric patients out in the community and think, oh, they're all fat and slovenly, it's not that. It's because they're heavily sedated. These drugs make you constantly hungry. They knock out the mechanism in your digestive system that tells you you're full, so you're battling constant hunger. And it just makes you prone to diabetes and all these other heart attacks and all stroke, all these things. We die 25 years younger than the rest of the population, which is actually worse than the Aboriginal statistics. So anyway, the precursor to all that is it's an uphill battle, and I've taken on board what you've said about regulation. Because I'm constantly hungry, I tend to graze, which I know is not good. So I'm going to try the reward thing of just putting up with the hunger and trying to stick to some small meals throughout the day and night, and see if that helps. But I just feel overwhelmed as to how I'm going to lose this weight, because I've tried desperately over the years cutting out things and following diabetes recommendations, and it just, nothing seems to work. And I don't know, do you have any experience in psychiatric medications and diabetes, and could we do a session on it, or can you give me some advice?
Absolutely. Is that clozapine you're talking about?
I was on olanzapine for 20 years on double the recommended highest dose, and they only test the recommended dose, so God knows what that's done to me. And now I'm on Solium, which also is not as bad as olanzapine, but you still put on weight with it, and it still affects your metabolism. So,
oh, I hear you, Julie, and I've dealt with patients over the years who are taking drugs to look at the chemical imbalance. And so this is the hard thing. We want to improve the chemical imbalance in the brain, so then you can live, nothing's normal, but live be functional in life. But then unfortunately with those drugs, and I really wish that we could get better and better with science to lessen the side effects, because yes, there's weight gain, right? Yes, there's a metabolic issue, so it can lead to diabetes, heart disease, everything like you said. And also when you're feeling down, you're less likely to engage in those healthy. It's a vicious cycle. So what I'm saying, it's not impossible to lose weight. It's not easy. Sorry, it's not easy to lose weight, but it's not impossible. But it's the way we look at it. If we think, and this is where I've trained health professionals in looking at the psychotic medications, and to look at how to deal with someone who comes to see you. Like you said, you've gone from 7 stone to quite a lot. The first thing we don't do is say, go back to 7 stone. Remember I said before when I was talking to Deb about 1 meal at a time, Deb's talking about 10% change. So we're looking at, with the research, losing 5 to 10% of your weight is significant enough to notice a difference. So what I'd say to you, Julie, is rather than always focusing on numbers, because we just talked about that, but just think about, where am I now? And maybe I'd like to get to this certain weight, right? And the way you might measure the progress might be how your clothes fit. I want these pants to feel a bit less tight, because it gets expensive buying clothes, and maybe that's a motivator. But I wouldn't actually think of where the end point, and you don't have to get to the previous weight to live a longer, healthier life. Okay, so it's looking at what's realistic now and what you're doing is good enough. Okay, I love the fact that you're going to be looking at regulation, some of the strategies, because if you think about it as a mountain, think of that mountain behind me here. This is in Austria, and you're standing at the foot of the mountain and you look at that mountain and you have to climb it. That's overwhelming, isn't it? So you've got to really think about building stairs in that mountain and doing steps at a time. And that's not being condescending. That's what the science says. The science says that human beings are not good at changing big things. Okay, they're better at changing things that are small. And you weren't at the last webinar, so I'm going to give you this example. Poor Deb, she's heard it about 1 million times. But the just noticeable difference is a little piece of science which validates making small changes work. So Julie, if you think about in your room and I put the temperature down, okay, let's put it cooler by 80%, could you feel it? Could you feel that temperature go down if I change your aircon and put it down by 80%? Yeah. So you would, you'd be cursing me. You'd be looking for your scarf. Now, if I change that temperature to 2%, reduced it by 2%, you wouldn't really notice, would you?
No.
So what's that got to do with the price of eggs? What's that got to do with you and your situation? If you changed your diet or changed your lifestyle by 80% or expected to lose 80% of your body weight, it's unrealistic. It doesn't matter how perfect a person is, okay? Or it could be someone who has no chronic illnesses, right? You've got a lot to deal with. If you said, oh, well, I'm going to make a 2% change to my diet or lifestyle or lose 2% of my weight, it doesn't really make a difference. What the science says, the key number is 10%. 10% is significant enough to see the difference. So if I change that temperature by 10%, the aircon, you'd notice it a little bit. Oh, it's a little bit cooler here, but not too much to freak the body out, if you know what I mean. So look at those small chunks. 10% change. I want my weight off between 5 and 10%. Focus on that. So then what are the things I need to do to reach that? Okay, maybe it's the werewolf syndrome, the late night snacking. Maybe I need to change that. Maybe I need to do some feel-good activities. Build in, maybe I need to enjoy my whatever food you like, but I'll build that in on a Saturday. I'll allow myself to go to the cafe and have a muffin and coffee, or go to that gelato place, but you have to walk to get there. So it's not about cutting all the favorite things out of your life. It may be actually going out to have it rather than keeping it in the house. Because if you feel like you can never eat that favorite food again, well, then that's not living, is it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So what sort of time frame, if you're looking at doing it incrementally in small steps, what sort of time frame are we looking at here to get a change?
Different things work for different people. What I'm going to put up in the forum is a habit change diary. So I'd focus on weekly. Don't worry about the weight, just focus on one habit change every week. So the first habit, you write your habit in there and you tick the day you achieve it. So it might be something like afternoon snacking. I'm going to eat a healthy snack in the afternoon rather than whatever. And you tick the day you achieve it. The day you don't achieve it, and that's going to happen because you're human, you do not put a cross on it because it reinforces negative behavior, makes you feel like a failure. So you only tick the days you achieve it. And at the end of the week, you go, oh, I got 2 ticks this week. Am I good with that? Yep, I think I'm going to do 2 ticks next week. Or could I increase it to 3 ticks? So the more you focus on the behavior, the outcome, which is the weight loss, will happen at some point. But focus on what you need to do and work on one habit every week. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Rome wasn't built in a day. It honestly, it's the only way to get out of that hole. Look at that mountain. I've got to climb that mountain. That's how you feel at the moment. It's the little steps. One step, habituate to that. next step, next step. And you'll know yourself. If you start feeling anxious and down, just keep to that behavior and don't increase it.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I think, and I love your honesty. I think I've just written down, it'd be really good maybe to get an expert in, Ange, about when we're looking at drugs and the impact of like psychotic impact on weight and blood sugars, or I'll have a little bit of think about it, but because it is a common issue.
I mean, we do have Donna, who's that works for Diabetes Australia, who's a pharmacist as well as a credentialed diabetes educator. She has just done, which I think was last week. Just waiting for the recording to come through so I can pop it up.
Yep.
But she did a supplement webinar last week, which was about supplements and vitamins. I'm not sure how much she went into because I wasn't hosting that one, like into psychotic drugs and antidepressants.
She just really covered the supplements that help diabetes.
Yep. So like I think she had in her I did see her slides, I think. So she had like I think in there berberine and things like that. But we could definitely talk to Donna and look at if she's able to do that, or if not, find someone else to be able to do that.
Because it could be anxiety medication, antidepressants, and then antipsychotics. So all those drugs, which are very common, and it'd be really interesting. It could be even a Q&A or something. We'll ask her. That's a really good idea.
Thanks very much. Is there any way of getting notified if that's coming up?
What was that?
So what was that, Julie?
Thanks very much for that. Is there any way of being notified directly if you've got that session coming up so I don't miss it?
Yeah, they'll all be, if you keep an eye on Diabetes Connect, if you log into Diabetes Connect, all of our upcoming webinars, whether it's a month in advance or 3 months in advance, are in there under your benefits tab under member events. And they'll also come out, so they're in there. They'll also come out in your monthly newsletter and also in Circle Magazine. And I also do posts in Diabetes Connect about new webinars that are coming up that we may have added. And if we can get this one up and running, we can. Obviously, yeah, we can certainly put that one in there.
Right.
I've just copied your email too, Julie, so I'll make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your help.
Oh, pleasure. But I think from the main point, actually, I want to ask you guys before we go, what's the main message from today, or maybe one take-home message that you're that's resonated with you? It could be a word, could be a sentence, could be something you're going to do.
Regulate and reward, combining those.
Love it, Julie. So, Deb.
I think for me, it's just reinforced the idea of breaking it down to small bite-size, things, and not getting overwhelmed with, I relate to Diane when she said about numbers, and not getting.
Yeah.
It's okay if I don't look at my CGM for 3 hours. Yeah, so and in those 3 hours it might go up, it won't go down, but and that's okay. It's okay to give myself that space and grace to be able to heal from the burnout, but also then gradually implement very slowly those re-implement, I guess, the healthy habits that I know.
Perfect. Love it. So really, I think that's the main thing, is self-compassion rather than self-criticism, right? Small steps creates long-term sustainability. Yep. And then having a thinking strategy that's helpful, and also having a bit of a plan. But backup plan as well. We talked about backup plan, having a backup strategy, because we know it doesn't always work, and support. Use us here for support. Other people are around you as well. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you all for your honesty and your enthusiasm. It's always wonderful. I'll always learn from you guys too. And I'm going to hand you over to my partner in crime, crazy cat lady Ange.
That'd be me. 2 cats. They were just arguing with each other, so you couldn't hear them. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And as we said, this is being recorded, so it will go up in Diabetes Connect within the week. If you want to watch back or take anything more from it. And as Beck mentioned, she will be putting up the slides, or I will put up the slides into Diabetes Connect. And if you have any questions or follow-up questions that you would like to make, please always ask them in Diabetes Connect. You can either comment on the post that we make with the slides. So, and if you do have any ideas for topics like Julia's come up with, please let us know. And with that, we will sign off and have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye,
ladies. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.